What's the name on them?
I want someone with a heart. Let's see, right there. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
That's a good one.
How are you? Good.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start the program by introducing Honorable Mayor William Flanagan, who will present the proclamation and light the peace pole. So, Mayor William Flanagan.
Thank you very much. It's so great to see everybody here once again, and many of you I work directly with, both as the mayor of the community, but also as a former prosecutor. And to all the social service agencies here this afternoon, I want to say thank you for what you do day in and day out to be a voice for so many who often find themselves voiceless. And being a citizen of this community, being the mayor, being a former prosecutor, I've had direct experience with domestic violence and seeing it firsthand, speaking with victims more times than I would like about the trauma that they have gone through in their violent relationships. And no matter what the circumstance, we always have to make sure that victims know they have a voice, that victims know that they have people like us in their corner, and let them know that we're there for them. And I would always, sit down with a victim of a domestic violence situation, whether it was an adult or whether it was a child and their parent who was involved in some type of physical abuse or sexual abuse in some cases. And sometimes it's a difficult situation to talk about. It's a very emotional situation to talk about. But we need to let victims know that there's an outlet for them, and we're here. And to have this event year after year, it raises awareness on domestic violence, and it lets the community know that this is an issue that people are dealing with. And it would always bother me when I would speak with a victim of domestic violence and they would say, I never felt I could escape. I never felt I could get out. I felt I was tied to that relationship. Either we had children together, or my partner was the breadwinner in the family, or I just didn't know there were agencies or shelters available for somebody in my circumstance. But we have this event every year to let people know that we're here for them, and to raise awareness on this issue, and to hopefully come back here year after year to hopefully end domestic violence in our community. And it's a tough battle. It really is a tough battle, but we're here fighting it, and we'll continue to fight it to make sure that the victims know that we're here for them. And in order to raise awareness, I'll continue to make proclamations like the one I have here. And I want to take a moment to read it all with you. It states, whereas the crime of domestic violence is not confined to any specific group or people, but affects people of all races, backgrounds, economic, education levels, family structures, ages, genders, and religions. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates members of our community's privacy, dignity, security, humanity, and health in the form of physical, emotional, psychological, and economic abuse. Whereas 1 to 2 million Americans aged 65 or older have been injured, exploited, or otherwise mistreated by someone whom they've depended on for care and protection. Whereas 1 in 5 female high school students in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts reported experiencing physical or sexual violence from a dating partner. And whereas those students were 4 to 6 times more likely to have been pregnant, or 8 to 9 times more likely to have attempted suicide in the past year alone. Whereas 19 people have lost their lives to domestic violence incidents in Massachusetts since January 1st of 2012. And whereas advocates, professionals, volunteers, and community members concerned with domestic violence will devote the month of October to raising awareness on the causes, interventions, and prevention of the devastating crime. Now therefore I, William A. Flanagan, as mayor of this city, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and reaffirm our city's commitment to ending domestic violence in our community once and for all. Those are alarming. Those are alarming statistics. But I do believe with our help, by raising awareness and continuing to devote the resources necessary and needed to this cause, hopefully we will one day erase those statistics. I also see the President of the City Council here with me. I would ask her to join me in lighting the peace pole on behalf of the city and all of its citizenry. Linda? Prayer. There we go. And I'd just like to present this proclamation to someone who would want to receive it in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mayor William Flanagan. I'd now like to ask Sylvia Rudman from the District Attorney's Office to come up and say a few words.
Good afternoon. On behalf of District Attorney Samuel Sutter, I'd just like to make a few comments. First, domestic violence is a crime that transcends economic, cultural, and social boundaries, as we know. Widespread, often underreported. It affects the lives of victims, batterer even, and many children living in abusive households. DA's office, the District Attorney's Office is responsible for prosecuting individuals charged with domestic violence. Many of our cases are prosecuted in the district court, but our more serious cases are prosecuted in Superior Court. And our prosecutor, Katie Rayburn, is often responsible for the majority of prosecuting those serious crimes. Each year, an estimated 3.3 million children are exposed to violence against their mothers or female caretakers by family members. 15.5 million U.S. children live in families in which partner violence occurred at least once in the past year, and 7 million children live in families in which severe partner violence occurred. Boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their own partners and children when they become adults.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'd now like to ask Michelle Loranger from the Bristol County Child Advocacy Center to come up and say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you also for being here. Every year, millions of children are exposed to domestic violence. Domestic violence incidents affect every person within a home and can have long-lasting effects on a child's emotional well-being, including their social and academic functioning. Children who are exposed to domestic violence may experience traumatic stress in response to events that are dangerous and threatening. A child experiencing traumatic stress is a normal reaction to a very abnormal event. We have known for a long time that children witnessing violence is a really bad thing. It's bad for them emotionally and bad for them physically. The impact of traumatic stress is well defined in the Adverse Childhood, or ACEs, study conducted by Kaiser Permanente, an insurance provider in San Diego, California, along with the Center for Disease Control, that children exposed to abuse, neglect, and family dysfunction have a significant and ongoing impact into their adulthood. Children exposed to multiple adverse events during their childhood, like abuse, physical and emotional neglect, and domestic violence, are strongly linked to adult onset of chronic illness, and there is even a connection to early death. The Children's Advocacy Center of Bristol County's mission is to empower children and families to heal from the trauma of abuse and violence through community partnerships education, and the pursuit of justice. We are a place and a process where children come to tell what they have witnessed in their homes, and most importantly, where they begin their road to healing. To end violence to women and children, because we know all too well that prevention is truly the key to ending a child's exposure to traumatic events.
Next, I'd please like to invite Dale Brown, Executive Director of the Women's Center of STAR.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being present today to bear witness to the many faces in the way of the masks and in the way of the survivors who are sitting among us today. My message today is short, but it is to encourage all of us here today to give victims of domestic violence their voices. That is our theme today, to give them their voices, to believe, to assist, and to empower them to become survivors in what has become an epidemic of domestic violence. The fear and the hope that were part of their reasons for staying have become their reasons for leaving. They hope for a better life. They fear no more. This is no easy feat after someone has experienced personal trauma in the context of an intimate, violent relationship. So today, instead of speaking to you at length, I am inviting a survivor who's coming here today, and I have to share with you that she just wrote her story on behalf of two other women who decided not to speak at the very last minute out of fear and because of the camera. So I introduce you to Brittany, who is speaking on behalf of many of the women who have shared their stories in our domestic violence group. And I hope that you bear witness and your voice to her journey of domestic violence. Brittany?
I'm a little nervous, so just bear with me, okay? First of all, I would like to thank you for allowing my voice to be heard today. For people who are in abusive relationships, a voice is something that is stripped away. My name is Brittany, and I am a survivor of an abusive relationship. Though I was not physically abused, I was mentally and emotionally broken by a man who I was convinced loved me. Every day I would wake up and do everything I could to be the ideal wife that I was told I should be. Needless to say, every time I failed. When he would come home from work, I would be waiting, wondering when he would explode or when he would start screaming. Never once did I speak to anyone, but for me it wasn't out of fear. I had strived to be perfect for so long that perfect was what I needed to be. One day after finally breaking down to a family member, I realized what I had wasn't love, and no one should ever feel less than what they are. To this day, I still struggle with the effects of the abuse, but with your help, I have taken the biggest step of all. And with that, I would like to thank you all again for taking a stand against domestic abuse.
Thank you for your courage to share that with us. Now a few words from the Executive Director of United Neighbors, Wendy Garflip, please.
Thank you all for coming. Brittany, your words are humbling. As we look around us and see the amazing projects that promote the strength and resiliency of survivors of domestic violence, we are comforted by the fact that although survivors in the moment endure alone, we, the community of caring, stand together to support and embrace our sisters and brothers as they move from being the victims of violence to a better, stronger life. This year, in recognition of the 1 in 3 billion women on the planet that will be raped or beaten in her lifetime, United Neighbors and the Fall River V-Day Committee will be participating in a global strike to demand an end to violence. 1 billion women will rise and dance throughout the world. We join the new Coalition for Domestic Violence, the National Coalition for Domestic Violence, Code Pink, and the AFL-CIO in this global effort to stand together against violence against women and girls. 1 Billion Rising will take place February 14th, 2013, right here in Fall River. Join us for this strike to end violence against women and girls. Watch for more information about 1 Billion Rising and for Fall River's V-Day performances in March. In the words of Eve Ensler, editor of the Vagina Monologues, she says, "I am over being polite about rape and violence. It's been too long now. We have been too understanding. We need to occupy rape in every school, park, radio, TV station, household, office, factory, refugee camp, military base, back room, nightclub, alleyway, courtroom, and office. We need people to truly try and imagine once and for all what it feels like to be invaded in your body, in your spirit, your mind splintered, and your soul shattered. We need to let our rage and our compassion connect us so we can change this paradigm of global rape and domestic violence. There are approximately 1 billion women on the planet who have been violated. 1 billion women. The time is now. Prepare for the escalation. Today it begins in Fall River, moving towards February 14, 2013, when 1 billion women, the Fall River women as well, will rise to end rape. Why? Because we're so over it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. If I can invite now my Executive Director of the Women's Center, Pamela McLeod-Lever, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Wendy, for your outrage. It is indeed time for outrage. I once said at a meeting, as many people as die from domestic violence every year in America were dying from a contractable disease, the Center for Disease Control would be in high gear inventing some kind of antivirus that could do something about it, and we'd all be concerned and we'd all be running around wearing masks. We are losing 4 women every day in America to domestic violence. This is a preventable form of death, and yet it goes on each and every day. I don't have to tell the people in this room that. I thank you for coming, but those of you that are gathered here, do speak for the victims of abuse and violence. It's kind of like preaching to the choir, because you all know why we're here. You all partner in this work, and we really appreciate your work for victims, on behalf of victims, because we need to speak for them until they can, as Dale said, find their own voices and speak for themselves. Some of them cannot. Too many of them cannot because we've already lost them. Some cannot because they're still living in the violence and in great fear every single day. So we are their voices. We are the voices against violence. We break the silence. We speak for the victims of violence. The that the mayor has lit today serves to remind us that many people die every year as a result of domestic violence, and that too many people live every day in violence and still live in it. So we speak for the victims. And those of you who are not here today but are viewing this, you can speak for them too. We ask that you partner with us in this work. You can help, you can change, even save lives. We ask for your help. Speak out against the violence. Speak for the victims. Every time you see the Peace Bowl, or every time you see this recording that will probably be, I find that these recordings have a life of their own and they stay forever on Fall River TV. That's wonderful. Because every time you see us, don't just flick by and say, oh, I've seen that before. You may not want to watch the whole program, but have it remind you about what's going on and what you can do to partner in this work. Think of the families and their loved ones that are left behind. Think of those still living in violence. Commit to changing the appalling statistics that we heard today, where 4 women die in America every day, and where 7 million children live in violence, in witness violence every single day. Think of this. Women and children, and men too, are dying every day by the hand of a loved one. Someone that they trust, not an enemy. Someone that they trust and love. Others live with the violence, and they live in fear. So remember the loved ones that have been lost, and think of the living victims, the victims and survivors that need your help to step out of the violence and to find their voices. Their lives have been shattered by the betrayal of someone very close to them, someone that they loved and may indeed still love. This is important. Remember that you can get information to help those victims. If you suspect someone is a victim of violence, there is help in your community. There's a great partnership here in Fall River with many community agencies that help women to put their lives back together. The Women's Center at Star provides community-based services and counseling to women. The Women's Center has a shelter right in this area to help women that are in danger and need safety. We provide a network of safety to victims. And we work with other community agencies to provide those things that victims might need, like housing and other financial resources or retraining, so that they can put their lives back together. There is a network in this city to help victims, so reach out and get help. And please join us by participating in events over this month. This month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I know a lot of people say to me, oh, I'm so tired of these Awareness Month things. You know, what is the Awareness Month this month? Well, I'll tell you, this is a really important month. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Two things that disproportionately affect women. It's not that men are not affected also. They're actually affected by both of those things, but not to the disproportionate effect that it has on women. It is majority women who are the victims of this violence and children who witness this violence. The thing about Awareness Month is I'm sure we're all a little, tired of having one cause or another constantly saying it's this month or that month. But you know what? It is a time to stop and remember. It's not that Dale's agency or my agency doesn't do the work every single day, but this is the month in which we're able to come to you and say, remember the victims. Take time to reach out to someone that you think might be in violence. That's the purpose of an awareness. Violence, however, is an assuredly preventable form of death. We're still struggling to find a cure for cancer. We know the cure to this. This is the cure. Speaking up, being a voice for victims, making sure that those that you might believe are living in violence, that they get help, that they know where to reach out. So that's the cure. The cure is really stopping the violence by breaking the silence. And we know we can prevent this. In fact, the World Health Organization called violence against women the most preventable form of death in America and around the world. And it surely is. And it starts with us. It starts with you being the voice for victims of violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. To conclude our program, I'm going to ask James and Susan to come up and do the White Ribbon campaign. Jason, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate and I'm very humbled to be here. The White Ribbon Campaign, the purpose of this event is to encourage men to work against men's violence against women. It's the largest effort in the world to this cause. Although most men will never commit acts of violence against women, men traditionally been silent about the violence. White Ribbon's basic philosophy is that while not all men are responsible for committing violence against women, all men and boys must take responsibility for helping end it. We've heard a lot of different stats today, and they're outrageous. And I'm going to give you one more, and I'm going to ask everyone to be silent for the last time for 9 seconds. Every 9 seconds, a woman is beaten in the U.S. And that is the last 9 seconds to be silent. So I stand here today, and I'm going to ask the mayor, from this day forward, I promise to be part of the solution by never committing, condoning, or remaining silent about violence against women and girls. Thank you, everyone.
Again, thank you. That concludes our program for today. Thank you, everyone, for coming.